Welcome back to the Game of Influence. My name is Josh Forti, and today I am here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, one of my best friends, the person who got wealthy before he got rich, by far the most intellectual and smart person I know. And that's saying something, right? I think, well, I'll just introduce him. His name is Brad Gibb. Brad, welcome to the Game of Influence. Thanks so much for coming on, dude.
Thanks for that, Josh. Appreciate it a ton.
Dude, okay.
Let's have a good time.
We have so much to talk about. All right. So we have so much to talk. We have about an hour or so to talk about it all. And it's funny. Where I wanted to go with that opening was like where I was saying intellectual. I thought Jordan Peterson. I was like, I remember the conversation we had where you're like, listen, how Russell talks about funnels and Hormozy talks about what he does and Peterson talks about what he does. You're like, I feel like I can have that level conversation with money. Now, before we get into that though, how's Funnel Hacking Live? We just came off of that. I want to talk about actually, how was the private jet?
Okay. Yeah, that was a cherry on top, right? So it's good to know people. Last second, we got to fly home on a private jet. So we didn't have to just private jets are amazing. I now want to aspire to more. So private jet was awesome. Steve Harward took us home from Funnel Hacking Live. Just happened to line up, and he lives in Utah. So that was very nice. Although I had planned on sleeping the entire way home. That doesn't happen on private jets, right? So that was the only downside. Only downside to a private jet is you actually have to talk to people. But it was a good group of dudes. So
how many people
that
were
was
on
fun.
Who was there?
It was just me and Steve and Ryan, my business partner Ryan Lee, and a buddy of ours, Peter Skaggs, who lives here next to us.
Oh wow, Peter, that's cool. Just the four of you?
Just four of us, and then Peter's wife and Ryan's wife. So yeah, small group. Like he changed his plans, so the people that were going to go didn't go with him, and he had an empty plane. He was going to fly back by himself otherwise. So it was a good time.
Dude, Russell flew home like commercial, it looked like. I couldn't believe it. Did you see him walking through the airport?
No,
he did some Instagram live. I have to watch it. I haven't watched it yet. He did like an Instagram live and he was like, "What's up, everybody?" You know how Russell does that. "What's up, everybody?" And he's walking through the airport. I'm like, "Yo, since when are you a peasant, Russell?"
Right. I was gonna say, like, man of the people. There you go.
I guess. I mean, listen, man of the people, but like, you got to imagine that like there's so many people flying home afterwards, right? Like that he could be attacked. But like, dude, I got attacked.
Of any time to not fly home public, that would have been it for sure. Maybe he had a purpose behind that. Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know. And maybe he wasn't going home. I don't know. He just said he was leaving. Maybe they were going someplace else. I don't know. But how was FHL? Well, I mean, you spoke, dude. Okay, I wasn't there. I'm bummed. But at the same time, you missed mine. So
I did. So
we're
it's
even.
fair.
All right, we're even now. So how did that go?
Dude, I heard amazing.
Actually, but dude, Catherine, you were there. Catherine Jones told me it was the single greatest duo presentation she's ever watched live. That's pretty dope.
That's pretty dang good, man. And I mean, the only reason that happened was, I mean, Ryan and I have great chemistry. We've been doing this for like 6 or 7 years. So it was going to be good. But what pushed it, I don't know if you've ever worked with McCall Jones before, but
briefly, but no,
was next level. Like in 2 sessions with us, she totally transformed everything, like the entire thing. And so it brought it to an entirely another level. So speaking was, I mean, you can't hang around in ClickFunnels and not want to speak on stage. So to have been there, you know, have been to work with Russell since 2016 and to have a chance to finally do that, man, it was in so many ways like a culmination of the journey.
Yeah.
To be able to get through there personally. The other kind of fun thing about it for us is like, as you well know, we struggle in so many areas that come naturally to the marketing crowd that we hang around. But to share the thing that I think we figured out, I mean, we figured out how to build a movement, have people wear t-shirts and post stuff online and like do all the things. And we sell them life insurance. Like to be able to do it in an industry that it can't be done. Right. And then to have somebody say something like that it's dynamic and engaging and exciting. So fun, really fun for us. The ClickFunnels team. I mean, you know, Russell is Russell, no matter where you meet him. And I've been around him long enough to be able to see that there.
Dude,
And
it's ridiculous, dude. Like anyone that like talks anything about Russell that's like negative or ClickFunnels that's negative, right? It's like I don't even like have you actually stepped a foot into the like have you been there?
right.
Right. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it's funny, I give Gustin, well, I don't know if you know him, but you know who he is, right?
Love him. Yeah.
And I had him on. And that one, he jumped ship, right? He went to high level and all that. And I give him so much crap for that, dude. So much crap. It's so funny. But even he like nothing but love, right? Like nothing but respect for Russell. He was voxing me while I was at ClickFunnels. He's like, what new updates did they come out with? And like he was like trying to get a link to the State of the Union, and like we were talking afterwards. He's like, oh, dude, I have so much FOMO right now. And I was like, well, you're a trader. So, but like it's so crazy to me how. I mean, I posted on Facebook. I was like, I mean, it's that was FHO was the number one event, right? To network at, to meet people at, the energy, the knowledge, like the people in that room that like just walk around, right? And that you can just like walk up to and talk to, right? It's just absolutely insane. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. Like we made it a point to not be the speakers who spoke and then sat in the green room and then flew home, right? Like we sat in the crowd, we talked to, because that's what made a difference for us so much, is we had the chance to kind of do the same thing. And it's definitely the culture that's curated there that definitely I think is absolutely.
Yeah, dude. I was at like, I mean, there's people walking around in the halls, right? Like everyone's walking. Myron's walking around the hall. Joe and Eileen are walking around in the hall, right? Dan Henry's walking around in the hall. That I met. Have you seen that? You're not on social media that much, so you haven't. But have you seen the guy? He's called Edward Verified, where he basically does reaction videos on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff to like people. So basically, you know how the internet is full of ridiculous claims about money and like what you can do with stuff, right? So he's this lawyer guy, and he like responds back to like he like watches the video, and you can like see him watching it, and he basically is like, this is either complete BS or it's Edward Verified, right? Which is like, yep, this is legit, right? You know what I mean? But like the guy's got millions of followers, right? Like I was
just
walked up and talked to him. I got Jeremy Miner, Jeremy Miner from Seventh Level, right?
Yep.
I met him at a party, right? Like got him to come on, like the book for the show. Peng Joon was walking around. Rudy was walking around. Like these guys are like, everyone that's like, oh, ClickFunnels is for beginners, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? In any crowd, you've got a spectrum, right? And I'm like, I don't know, people that are doing hundreds of millions of dollars. Ty Lopez's former CEO, like, but these ones are not like, these are ballers, right? And it's like when I used to, I think, like when I would look at like ClickFunnels or whatever, I would buy into well, this is great for ClickFunnels, but like not every event can be this way type of deal, or maybe that's not where the magic lies. And like, I think over time I've just realized like, no, the magic of an event has nothing to do with the content, right? The magic of the event has to do with the environment and the energy and the people that are there in the room, right? I don't know. It was pretty.
But he blends that perfectly. You're right. It's not going to be a doctorate level breakdown of something, because you can't do that from stage. However, you could do that with somebody in the hallway, right? So you have the opportunity for it, but the content is good enough. Like I had Joe and Eileen, who are the people who teach you to do like they came up to me and like, I took 2 pages of notes on your entire presentation. Like, so there's still enough.
And I think I think they're not only that, and this kind of ties back to what I wanted to get to with McCall, because I have questions about McCall, is if you try to go to every speaker, it's not, you can't, right? Like it's, your brain cannot process that much information. Like, dude, I mean, this is a little bit different for me, but like, I couldn't make it into every speaker if I wanted to, because I just get attacked in the hallways. Like dude, I don't know, I told you this. I literally walked into.
It's tough being cool, man.
Bro, it's so tough being cool. It's so tough being so awesome. Oh my gosh. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I literally walked into the Marriott, and I came in a day late because I had client stuff or whatever. Dude, I walked in. I wasn't even to my room. Like I was like walking in the thing. People walk up to me. The first thing the guy walks up, it's like, if this were the microphone, like an actual microphone, and like walks with this, sticks the microphone in my face, and it's like, hey Josh, can we make a video together? And I'm like, I can't think yet, right? Like I'm like, sure.
I just got off the plane, but let's go.
Right. But what I did watch is I watched 3 presentations, right? And it was the attractive character power hour. You were there, right? It was right. Like McCall, Kalen Poland, McCall, Jones, and Kevin Anson, right? And it was like, I only took notes on those 3 presentations. I didn't watch anything else. The entire rest of the time I was spent networking. And I was like, now I only know one thing, and that's the only thing I have to do. And like that in and of itself is valuable. So anyway, McCall, I want to ask you about her.
Yeah.
Because I'll have to have her on because I'll have to tell her the story. Because like when I first heard what McCall did, like however long ago, I was like, okay, this just seems like a reach.
Yeah, who would have been a bigger skeptic of it than
you?
Me,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
Yeah,
right. It was like find your charisma, right?
Yeah.
And then I like was at Catherine's event and she spoke there or whatever, and like she broke down her process and I was like, dang it, like wow, this is actually good, right? And then I like started watching her videos, and then she explained how her husband helped. Like it's like all data driven, right? They like analyze, and then I found out she was in acting beforehand. I was like, oh dang, she's really good, right? And then like you see her on stage, and I mean, dude, you watched that presentation. So like what I don't know. Why should I work with? I don't know. Like what was it? What did she do?
Because like, you know, when you're with somebody and they're talking to you at your level, but you know that there's like 7 levels that they're consolidating down.
You mean like you with money, every single conversation we ever had?
100%, right? Or Russell with marketing, or Jordan with like, it was evident, I mean, very quickly to be like, she made it so simple. She almost cheapened it by this charisma hacking type of a thing, right? She made it at least somewhat understandable, but yeah, there's serious data driven. But for me, what
did she actually do?
So at least for us, what she did is we sent her, you know, because Russell makes like, he'll put you on stage somewhere to get an idea of the topic, right? And then invite you to speak on stage at Funnel Hacking Live. At least that's the way a lot of the speakers end up getting there. So she had to send up the presentation that we did the first time, and then our updated slide deck. And she went through and analyzed the entire thing of like, here's where it got difficult for you. Here's where you were out of your charisma style or in your charisma style. And then we had to go from a 70-minute presentation to a 35 or 38-minute presentation. And she's like, hey, here's what you should cut, because it's not it. You only need to talk about things that light you up, that are inside of your so here is what you're going to talk about. And then she was obviously like, is there anything else you need in there? And if so, why? And let's make sure that we then we then change it and alter it so that it's something. And she isn't like, she never once said bring more energy or be more engaging here. It was, when in your charisma style, you are engaging. So let's figure out what pulls you away from that, whether it's some of the content. Like there was a part that I presented, like, I just don't get that excited about it. Like I felt obligated to talk about it. And so she's like, let's cut it or change it and get excited about it. And then, so it was just getting all the things that make you pull away from just being your like when you're around people and you're comfortable, people like you. So we're just going to make the same thing. And that was I thought there was going to be more like tactics and other stuff. And she just
really
removed all the barriers from it. And then
because like, dude, you were so like, I mean, I can tell this to you because you admit it. Like you were so boring on stage at one point. Oh, right. Man. Like I know you joked about Russell falling asleep, but like not for good reason.
Not a joke.
And it wasn't for not for good reason though. Like no offense. Like, I mean, you were the typical like guy that talks about money, and you're just like, oh my gosh, right? But like now I mean, Catherine Jones is an insane speaker, right? And she said it was like the best presentation she'd ever watched with 2 people, right? So like, how did you like?
So I mean, there's a progression. Hold on. I would love to give.
Hold on. Let me ask you the actual question I'm asking you here, and then you can answer however you want. I feel like I'm a good speaker, right? I feel like I'm pretty good on camera. I feel like I'm pretty good on stage. Apparently, I need to slow my freaking walking down. I gotta send you the video.
Everybody said that. Everybody said, just don't Josh Forti across the stage.
Oh, is that okay? So it's so funny. So So every single person that came, like after I got off stage, every single, like universally across the board, right, was like amazing, 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 amazing. But you gotta slow down, right? Except one. One person came up and was like, actually, yeah. So it was a woman. She comes up to me and it was like, best presentation ever. Don't listen to anybody else who's telling you had to slow down. Most amazing thing. Don't you ever, like, do not for a second worry about the fact that you did that. So you can fix it all later next time is the best thing you could have done. You know who that was? It wasn't McCall, by the way.
I know who it was just because you told this story.
Oh, okay. It was Kaylin Poland, right? Like the Russell's attractive character, right? And she's like, I was like, okay, I appreciate it. And like, you carry a lot of weight, right? So I was like, why? And she's like, because Josh, they're not going to remember anything you said as soon as you walk off stage, but they will never, ever, ever forget that, right? Like, they will be talking about it.
It's like McCall's high kick. Like everybody remembers her doing that thing, and now they'll remember 100%
forever. So my question is I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm decent, and I feel like my starting point entry level was better than your entry point level, right? When it comes to that, right? On this particular topic. For sure. And I watched you like pretty transform. And I'm like, wow, if Brad can get that much better, then I can get that much better. But like, what did you do?
So there's some things I've stacked, right? And McCall is the cherry on the top that like unlocked the rest of it. Where I didn't have to try. Like I was still definitely trying on some of them to get there. But at first it was listening to Russell on Don't Teach, right? It was just, and people like inside of, I think it's Expert Secrets, he's got a whole exercise where you say, what are their false beliefs? What do they need to believe? And then what's a story to get him to do that? I've legitimately done that probably 1,000 times. And so people see that like I'm teaching something, and that's where this, I think people are picking up on our presentation style. Ryan and I, we feel like we pioneered like 50 gifts in a speech as like the point to nail. And then, like,
you really did. Yeah.
Tons of people are now doing
yeah.
Because I said, which is great. But that came from what do they believe and what are they feeling? And since I don't have feelings, like gifts were a great way to be like, this is probably how you're feeling, right? And to be able to do that. So first it went through to be like, every point is attached to how do they feel? How do they need to feel? And then a story or an analogy or a kind of like bridge or whatever to get there. And so that's very engineered. Like I'm not joking, like probably 1,000 different examples of that. So now we have this bank of that. So that was like step one of getting out of being boring and teaching on it. And then second, Eileen and Joe really helped that two identities thing. You'll see it in my speech, right? We had business builders and movement makers from the very beginning, right? So the two identities was part of, right, at the very beginning of it. And then the third one is it's Russell's dominoes, and whether you follow it in 3 secrets exactly, whether it goes internal, external or not, but it really is just refining it down to, if they get this point, what are all the other points that then become irrelevant, and pulling it down to then, because then you're leaving them with something that, because it's the most critical thing and refined all the way down to its simplest element, they can take it and then expand on it, because it is expandable, right? But they get to expand on it to whatever experience or direction or applications they're going to have for it, right? And then the charisma for us was just the final thing, just again letting our heads get out of the way for it. I'd say those are the things I worked on the most.
That makes sense. And I think what I heard you say without you saying it was, you found, like with the gift thing, I feel like you found the thing that allowed you to be yourself, right? And then like, because like the 3 secrets, the 2 identities, like those are powerful. Those are the most powerful. Like those are what gets someone to buy. I mean, I talked about that with Dan Henry. I told you that story when I was down with him and joining Eileen. But like you can do those things and be so freaking boring, dude. Boring. Oh my gosh, right? So like when you were talking about,
you can be super engaging without those, and then people are like, oh, I was entertained, but they weren't really impacted, right? So those have to come together.
It's the art science, right? Russell, the two identities, the three secrets, like that's the science. But I think like it's interesting of like when you were saying about the gifts, I was like, okay, that makes sense because you just found the thing. You found the thing that allowed you to like be you and articulate how you were feeling when you don't have feelings, right?
Yep.
So it's like that. That was interesting. Okay, that makes sense.
So
I gotta do more of that. I feel like it's interesting on my show. I do like I've created. I just got done. Check this out. I wish I could show. I might be able to show you this.
ooh.
I just got done writing. Yeah. Okay. Check this out. I just got done writing. I'm gonna share my screen. This is the first time I've ever done this in an interview. I just got done writing last night a 20 something page guide called Podcast Profits. Okay. And it's basically break down my whole here. Can you see my screen?
It's coming up. Yep.
All right, check this out. All right. So it's literally this whole guide on it's got like worksheets and stuff in here too. This whole thing, 27 pages long. Okay.
So good.
And dude, I rewrote this thing. I am not kidding you when I say I rewrote this thing. Like, I am not like a tweaked and adjusted. I mean, like rewrote the whole thing probably 6 or 7 times, right? To like get it down to like where it needed to be. And basically taking my brain of what I did on the show and like what I've done on the show to like do interviews and flow and get people on the show and creating the environment and like all the different pieces, right? Like, like down out of my brain and into the document to where like it was comprehensible, right? And one of the biggest things that I noticed in a show is like step one, it's called the golden mic method, right? That's that's the chat GPT answer that Dan Henry and I came up with, right? That that it is. It's gonna be that's gonna be such a great story someday. It already is a great story, but but like step number one that I think like everybody gets wrong when it comes to like their show is they think that they have to create they think that their show has to be about their topic. If they think that their show has to like teach people stuff. They think that their show has to be about marketing if they do marketing, right? And it's like none of that's true. Like step number one is to create your angle, because if you create the right angle, the whole purpose of your show is to create this place where your ideal customer or guest or whoever you're trying to go wants to come talk to you. Right. And it's like, if they don't want to come talk to you, and by the way, it's not just willing to come talk to you, but like actually want to, they enjoy it. And the example I use is obviously if nobody wants to come talk to you, then you're going to push a boulder up a hill. Right. But it's like, if somebody's willing to come talk to you, if I had a car on one side of the street, it was a flat street, right? And I need to go a mile. Like willing is I can get in the car, I can put it in neutral, and I can get out, I can push it. Like, can you do it?
Yeah.
Well, sure, right? Yeah. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, but you could do it, right? But if you create a place where people want to come talk to you, right? It's like game over. It's like getting in the car, turning on the car, pushing on the gas, and going. And the perfect example of that is when Russell, like, you know this. I think you know this. But I've had Russell on the show like 4 times, right? I've never one single time asked Russell to come on the show. Every single time he's reached out to me and been like, "Yo, can we do Atlas Shrugged? Yo, can we do Outwitting the Devil? Right? Yo, why? Because like he wants to come on, right?
Yeah, he
and
wants
the way
to
that
talk
you
about those things,
right? And so the way that you do that is you create a play, or I'm sorry, is you find the things that you bring to the table, right? Like it's your big idea, like whatever the big idea of your show is, and then like what do you bring to the table that allows you to be you, right? And so like my big idea was like, dude, how many people have a marketing podcast where they talk to people, marketers about marketing, about their first funnel and how they made $1 million in marketing, marketers, right? It's like, so like with Think Different Theory, like what I do, I was like, yo, you ever, what do you think of Trump? Or what do you think of God? Or like, have you ever done drugs? Or, you know what I mean? Like I just asked people the randomest questions and they were like, this is amazing. Everybody want to come. But like, I just got to be me. And I feel like that concept of me doing what I do best, which is be controversial and ask good questions, is the same concept that you apply to the presentations of you're just like, what do I do best? Well, I like witty humor. I love gifts. And I feel like once you did that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what unlocked it. Yes.
100%. And that's what McCall's really good at. That's where charisma hacking is important. Cause like when she showed me my style, she had named it she had said something like, you're a tease. And I'm like,
Charm.
I'm not. And charm. And that didn't make sense to me. Yeah, it is charm. Until she's like, you specifically need to lay on the sarcastic,
You're
like
so good at it too.
ego, you know what I mean? Like, and giving me permission to do that with
Yeah.
that is like, oh, I need to, if I'm ever getting boring or dropping in energy or not delivering the way, I need to add some wit back into it, because that's how I like Garrett White gets people's attention very differently than I get people's attention. And then when you get their attention, then you're engaging, and then you can go into all of your stuff. And so that's when I'm like, anytime I feel it dipping, I'm like, okay, I need the break the ice, the move things up for me is that arrogant, witty type of
The
humor.
Iron
And
Man,
then
dude. That Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man, like
that's exactly when she showed
100%.
me that, I was like, yes, that's why I like Iron Man, is like, that's exactly how I'd respond to everything. It's like, okay, cool. Now I've got a guide, because it's hard to do it for yourself, but I'm like, oh, those are the people that I need to see how they're doing it, and I can have permission to do it the same way, and I don't have to get on stage and try to get the audience engaged the same way Tony Robbins would, or the same way even Russell Brunson would. Like, when he gets all excited, I get excited when he does it. When I try to do it, I just feel stupid.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can't be that. So
yeah,
it was great. It was worth everything. And all we did was 2 sessions with her, and then some boxing back and forth. And the entire thing transformed.
all right. I'll have to hit her up, because
It is worth
I'm getting ready to do a big old challenge with Dan Henry.
That's what we're gonna do, is we're redoing our 5-day challenge, and we're gonna do it and have her add that element to the entire thing. So
yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see how your new challenge goes. Dude, we're gonna try to do $1 million in a day.
Ooh, you
with
or
Dan,
me and
Dan. No,
Dan.
me and Dan. Like, yeah, like that dude is just he's just
dude. You said something that has still stuck with me on Dan Henry. Like, anyone that knows Dan has 50 preconceived ideas about it, and they're probably all true in some way. But the one thing you said of like, he's legitimately the smartest person in this. But then you said, it's not because he knows all the advanced stuff better. It's because he knows, if you think you're a 7 on the basics, you're actually a 2 and he's a 10.
Yeah.
And
now, the exact analogy that I used was, if it was a scale of 1 to 100, and most people think they're like a 40 or a 50, and he's like a 70, and it's like, no, you're a 12 and he's a 92. Right. Yeah. Yep. But like, because and he's like, he gave me the rules of like, one of them was always self-deprecate, right? Because he's like, the more of an idiot you can sound like, the more people believe that they can do it, right? He's like, because the higher you get, he's like, the more it's impossible for them to do, right? And so he's like, you have to be an idiot. Like, you have to just self-deprecate. And I like conceptually believed him, because I like watched him do it. And obviously this is in the coaching space, coaching consulting, when you have to make someone else believe that they can. It's different depending upon what it is, right? But like, I conceptually believed him. And dude, I went to FHL, and when people would go and ask me what I did, here's how I would respond every single time. Okay. And it was fascinating to watch the responses, because beforehand, you just should be like, oh, I do marketing, we do challenges, and we made these millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, oh, that's cool. Blah, 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 right. Like, this year, I answered everybody the same way. I was like, oh, I'm super dumb. I just interview smart people, and I learn what they do, how they think, how their problems, and like, then how do I solve their problems for them, and they pay me lots of money. But I'm super dumb, right? Like, that's what I would say, right? Every single time. And dude, it was like, everyone was so fascinated, right? Everyone was like, well, what do you mean? Like, that's so smart. What did you do? And I'm like, wait, I just told you I was dumb, right? Like, I'm just sitting there like testing like different lines on it, and it was always that thing, and it was fascinating. And so anyway, Dan and I are trying to $1 million in a day, and I was boxing in. We drove home yesterday. It was like, dude, it was so long. It was like 7.5 hour drive after 2 flights. But I boxed him for like 45 minutes, and like, he's helping me build out the stuff. And this is the first time I feel like Dan actually got my process, right? Like, he like knew it beforehand, but like, there was that moment, that when someone is like, oh, wait, he's like, and he goes, oh, dude, this is actually really good. He's like, oh, we're gonna make millions and millions of dollars with this. Okay, gotcha. Right. So we're gonna try to do $1 million in a day.
Okay,
But
stop. I want to point something out. Dan was confident before he knew you were really actually good at what you did that you could make $1 million in a day. So
yeah,
everybody just like soak that in for a minute. Like you don't have to be, according to Dan anyway, it sounds like the absolute insanely best, like 1 in a billion. And now that he realizes Josh is approaching that and much better than he originally thought, now he's like, we'll make millions and millions and millions.
millions,
Just
millions,
wanted to point that
millions.
out. Like,
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
that's cool.
Okay, so actually, that's a perfect transition and segue over into the money conversation because two main topics that I have left to talk to you about. This one's one of them. Okay, so money. So I told you this at FHL. I have never met someone in my life who more people want to give money to than you. That like you're not accepting even, right? But like we'll talk about that ways. But like so many people want to give you money. Now, money aside for a second, like the actual idea behind money, but like that right there contains like that means you have a level of influence that most people don't understand, right? And this is the game of influence, so we have to talk about influence. So, like, I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before either. So, like, what do you think makes you as influential as you are? And like I always say, influence is not about the amount of followers that you have or, you know, how many views you get or even technically the amount of people that know you, right? Influence is like your ability to get someone else to move, either directly or indirectly, right? Like literally your influence, how they think, act, decide, right? And it's like when somebody, myself included, but like when somebody gets around you and they like understand you or not even understand you, they like remotely understand one topic of what you talk about, right? It's like they just like are like, oh my gosh, I have to work with you. Or like, oh my gosh, how do I give you money? Like this is insane, right? And I'll let you tell as much or as little as the Taylor stuff if you want to, or whatever. But I hear you tell those stories and I see what people do and I see how people interact with you and like want to give you money. What do you think? Where do you think you hold influence, and what do you think creates that?
Where do I hold influence?
And I want you to answer this as if you're talking to me because
yeah.
I want to know.
So that's when you tell me things like, Brad, you're the top person who people want to give money to at FHL that don't know how, I'm still genuinely confused by that. So maybe we discover this together because whatever it is, I'm not doing intentionally. Like I'm not going there in order to create it, but I can throw a couple of things out there that I feel like are just how I operate or rules.
Yeah.
That would, because I've been trying to answer it since we even talked at Funnel Hacking Live, right? Yeah. We were walking and having the beginning of this conversation. A couple of things is a lot of it's built on reputation, right? And your reputation precedes you. And that is it. If there were pillars of influence, I would put that in as one of them, not the only one, but a big one. And one thing I've done is one of the reasons I don't take everybody's money is if I don't have a product that can serve you and can get the result, I'd rather not even start. Like I'm either going to knock it out of the park for you or we're not going to do anything at all together because I'm going to protect. I don't ever want somebody walk away and be like, that was all right. It was pretty good. Right. So I work to ensure that contact with me or engagement or interaction with me is always a level 10, or I'm going to work on not doing it. So that's some of the reason why is our product wasn't originally built for entrepreneurs, those in the ClickFunnels space, those doing it, we were working in another space. I don't know if that's what it is. And then that becomes elusive and it becomes a tease and it becomes
no.
Just really knows what's going on. But that's why I've continued to turn things down is I'm like, I know what you need to get the result that I can offer. And I don't have the ability. And a lot of it, to be honest, is the person coming to me. Like some of these people I'd have to fly to you and sit with you for 2 weeks and force you to do this. Like I just can't do it. So I'm not even going to tell you anything about it at all. Right. And I've worked to improve to where I now have products or programs or the ability to get the result, and I get more and more results. But like, that was something we decided really early when we came into the ClickFunnels space. Was like, wait a minute, we could make millions on everybody here. Like, we could really come in and do this, and we never have until we've had the thing to be able to do.
Back it up. Yeah.
But what do you think about that?
I'm just analyzing it. I think you're right. Like, I'm trying to just like part of the reason is then I have the show, and like I did the angle of the show, what I did with like the game of influence is like, I think that some people like the Dans, maybe the Russells, right? Like, of the world, know why they are influential, right? Because they've studied it, and it's like they've literally reverse engineered and engineered their whole life to be able. But I do think a lot of people don't know why they are, right? And I'm like trying to like learn it, because when I sat back and I asked myself, like, I'm like, okay, I've been in marketing, I've done sales, I've done social media, I've done podcasting, I've done, in shows, and I've done challenges. And I'm like, what's like the common denominator behind all of this? And then, by the way, as I sat on your couch and we talked till whatever it was in the morning earlier this year, and I was like, I don't want to build a business, Brad, right? I just want to make money and be a unicorn. And you're like, yeah, you could probably figure that out, right? I was like, well, okay, that was great. And I appreciate your permission for that. That was great. But I'm like, doesn't really help. I mean, it did a lot, but I'm like, what's like the underlying thing? And I'm like, because you mentioned like a Simon Sinek, right? Or like people that were unicorns. And I'm like, okay, well, they're all super influential. Right. And that kind of been this underlying thing of like understanding like what gets people to move and like being connected and like all this. And so I just am like trying to figure out, like, how do you.
I think I thought of it.
Okay.
So the other part to it, and you and I have talked a little bit about this as well, and this is absolutely so. In this stems from the industry that I'm in, because there are real consequences to bad decisions. Like, I'm not in an industry where you fake it till you make it. I'm not in an industry where you can experiment through, like, it works or it doesn't. You know what you're doing or you don't. And there are lots of people who don't know what they're doing, but they talk like they do. So there's real consequences to that. So the thing I've always refused to do with clients is just to be like, hey, here's what you should do, Josh. Here it is. I know what you should do, but I always had that fear of like, if I just said it all and walk through it, it'd be like handing you a kid's scissors and be like, skip into the sunset, right? With your scissors, 4-year-old. So what I've always done is I've said, look, I have to teach you how to think before I can show you how that product works, because having it, you're going to be required to think to get the results. And if you can't think, then no, it doesn't matter how amazing the product is that I give you or I set you up with or I put into place, the result won't come. And so we have a pretty hard line around, unless you will sit with me and let me rewire how, or go through my program or whatever, to be able to, you have to then, like, I don't ever sell a product. I only talk about, here is how you need to be thinking. And I continue on that line of reasoning until you ask me, I want whatever that is. And then I'm like, great. Now I've rewired you enough to think about it. Now you're asking for it, and now I can put it in. And because you asked for it, you'll receive it and you'll use it and you'll do stuff with it, rather than talking about how amazing the product is and why it solves all your problems and how it's the best thing ever, and almost like forcing that on you. But if you see the world fundamentally differently, and I get that all the time, they're like, if you talk to Brad about money, like, you'll never unsee the world, and you'll see it in all of the places.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That then
break your brain type of,
right? Then it continues to reinforce the fact that, like, when I give you something, you're like, oh, are you sure? I don't know, or it gets hard, or I don't. Then everywhere you're seeing it, it's reinforced. So that's another one, is I think people of influence, and Jordan doesn't just give you the answer either, and Simon Sinek doesn't either. Like, they work to rewire how you're thinking about something. Now you're, by definition, changed, which means they influenced you. So I think that's a big part of it, at least for me.
No, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, I mean, he's borderline annoying sometimes, right?
Mhm.
With how long he takes to freaking get to his answer.
To answer.
Like,
He
what
answered
was
2 questions at our thing where we watched for an hour and a half because he
right?
spent all of the time rewiring everything. Because it's like, I can't even answer this because we haven't defined some basic set of time. I'm like, where is he going with this? But then you realize, oh, there was this seeded thing way deep in my presuppositions that had to be broken before his answer would even make sense.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things by him with that exact thing is when somebody asked him about Bitcoin and he started talking about he started talking about God bringing the Israelites out of
Out of
Egypt,
Egypt.
right? Like across the Red Sea, and then like how they wandered into the desert for 40 years and all this concept of blah, blah, blah. And he spends like 30 minutes probably on this concept, right? And like, I think it had to do with like the fact that it was like self-preservation or or not self-preservation, like taking care of oneself and responsibility for oneself and like custody of oneself, essentially, right? Because he's like, these people actually wanted to be enslaved, right? Because even after they were out, they were like, they're going to go back. And he's like, da 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 da. And so Bitcoin is this. And he like ties the whole thing back in. And you're like, I have never, like, how did I, what? You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so that's interesting because the question right before you said, like, I think I got it. That I think the question where I was going with that was like, okay, you've walked. I mean, I've seen you walk into rooms where from the outside looking in, and in the category of topic of the room that it was, is like you were not the smartest person in that room around that topic, right? Like Russell's inner circle when you first walked in, right? Like
Yep.
when it came to marketing, when it came to stuff. And like you've told the story a bunch of times, so I think I can tell it. It's like Russell told you this wasn't going to work and just to go sell life insurance, right?
Yep.
And it was like, oh, but that's not, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I think my question was is like, how did you have the confidence and certainty to not only just like to like know what to say or hold yourself, but like for you not to lose faith in yourself almost, right? Because I'm like, that's where I feel like is the hardest for me sometimes is like I'll walk into a room and like when my ideas are pushed and challenged, I'll be like, I don't know, maybe it worked for me, but dang, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on all this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you can, what you're saying is if you can shift thinking, which is exactly what Dan told me, right? Don't teach people anything, teach them how to think, right? That's what basically creates influence. It's so annoying and so helpful at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
dude, the belief thing, as a side note, in case people are wanting answers to that, like that to me is where um the community comes into play. Like I would have quit multiple times if there weren't people like Josh Forti being like, no, dude, you don't get it. Like you don't see when you walk into a room how everybody else reacts because you're you. Like, and so it's like, oh, okay. I guess I okay. We'll try this a little bit longer. So that's
Yeah.
something. I don't know. That's
Well, I also
that.
think you know your stuff so well. That's the
Yeah.
other thing that like that is one thing I will say about you too. When you were like, I'm in an industry where this has to work type of deal. Yes. Also, you just know yourself better than everyone. Like you know what you do. I mean, like just better than anyone else, right? Like you know it so well that I feel like that creates a level of certainty and influence. Braden actually posted this and the other day or a couple weeks ago, and he was like, money flows, and I'm going to use money, influence flows, right?
Yep.
To the people that are the most certain.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I was
Yep.
like, well, that's good.
Oh, that. And Garrett White says it this way. It says, whoever has the strongest frame wins the argument.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me, I guess also would be that idea of certainty. Right.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
I'm so certain in it when somebody's not understanding me, I'm like, okay, you're just not understanding, which means I need to change how I'm packaging this. Doesn't change anything about, I know it 1,000% sure that this is the way it is. There's just a premise that is missing that needs to be fixed. And then once
Yeah.
that's understood, we can get there.
Yeah.
That's what kept me going through it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like that's how I feel about my show, not to the level of detail, but I'm like, I think everybody should have a show because I'm like, there's no greater networking tool ever. I mean, like, I can say whatever I want to say. I could be like, oh, reading expert secrets or building a funnel or like presentation or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, none of those things actually got me on stage. None of those things actually
Yep.
built any, like, it's just like literally one thing, like creating a place where I could build relationships with powerful people. Like, period. Like, end of story. Like, that is what it did. Right. And it's funny because like the more I tell people that I'm like, I'm pretty dumb. Right. And then I go and I do this, I'm like, I'm actually pretty dumb. And I'm just like, I got a few things right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you don't have to get anything right. You could barely get anything right. Like, you could literally just get like a couple of things right. And you can, not like as a leech, but you can kind of like ride off of everybody else's like knowledge and just like apply a few smart things to your life, which, okay, this is actually another perfect transition to the last topic I wanted to get to about, because knowledge on this, which is, good sir, I am 2 months away from being a dad.
Oh, yes.
Dude, 2 months, man. December 1st. We have a name, Willow, right?
Yes.
So, and we went and got a 3D ultrasound. So we like saw her face. And then that was like, oh,
Is it?
this is really real. Oh, this is like actually happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yes, that. Talk to me. I don't know. What do I need to know? Oh, because I feel like everyone, there's never been something in life where I feel like, oh yeah, everyone that gave me advice on this was all right, right? That
Yeah.
everybody universally was correct on what they told me. And here's the two things. Number one, during the pregnancy so far, no one, no, not a single person actually told me what the hardest part was going to be for me, which is, your wife is going to be uncomfortable all the time, and there's literally nothing you can do to help her, right? Like, don't worry. There's nothing money can buy. There's no much time, how much time you can spend. And I was like, no one prepared me for that. And now we're about to have like this kid, and here's what everybody's telling me. They're like, you're never going to get any sleep, bro. And I'm like, okay, counterpoint. Also, I could just make a lot of money and hire a nanny. And guess what? Moved into a house. We could have guests. I'm like, that seems like a solvable problem to me. Am I going to get less sleep? For sure. Am I going to be worried all the time? I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making this all up. I have no idea. Maybe I'm totally wrong on this. But I'm like, what do I not know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, dude, that was a really good way to put it, because I felt the same thing about my wife up until she was pregnant. And my wife was like deathly ill, like IVs every week, like not even able to function. And we did this 6 times. So she's a pull. But that was the first time I really understood empathy, because I'm not like, I don't have feelings, right? So like, if you're a functioning person and you're having a hard time, it's like, okay, welcome to life. Like,
Suck it up,
can I help
buttercup.
you? Like, I'll talk you through anything. But
Yeah.
that was one where like there was absolutely no solution. There was only pain and suffering. And I care for that person deeply. That was like the trifecta of like, oh, and you're right. Like, that's what I hated about it, was like, there's nothing I or anyone can do. It's just going to suck for a while.
Cap.
That is really true. What specifically, is there something specifically, like, is it the birth process? Is it then having a kid? Is it then the timeline that, you know, that you're stepping into, that between now and 18, something has to happen? Like, what?
I'm not, here's the thing. I'm not worried about it at all. I'm like, I have like no concerns,
Okay.
right? And
Can we get controversial?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know why you're not worried about it? Because just like with your wife, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But guess who can? Like, this, to me, I've never relied on Christ more than as a dad. Because I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. It's impossible for me to know what I'm doing. There's so many other factors out there, but this is your plan. Like, you made it this way. You didn't give us a manual. You don't reveal everything. There isn't. It's just be the protector, provider, preside of your family. Here, you live everything that you possibly can and do all that you possibly can. And then it's in his hands. And that's the way I basically start and end every day, is like, hey, here's everything that I tried. Here's show me something that I can do better for me. And then you take the rest. And that's why I've never really like stressed about it, because I know it's unknowable in my mind, but somebody does know. And then I will just be the instrument.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You said there's not a manual. There's literally not. And it's interesting. I've never thought it about the way that it's like, oh, but wait, that's the way that God designed it. Like God gave us a manual for life. He
He
literally
gave us
handed
10
us.
commandments. He tells us how to interact with everybody
He literally
else.
gave us the whole Bible. He's like, here you
Right.
go, right? But he didn't
He
do that.
tells us how to interact with our neighbor. He tells us how to interact with like everyone else, but there isn't that one.
I mean, there are verses here and there, but I agree. And it's like, okay, that makes me feel better too.
And the harder part is there's examples of who you would think did it perfectly and their kids didn't respond, right?
Yeah.
Like Adam, can't think of a better dad potential than him. He stood in God's presence and remembered it, right? And had two very different outcomes with their children, right? And then there were people who were raised by terrible parents who then became kings and prophets and stuff. So it's like, okay, there's an element that's mine, but then there's the rest of it that's not. And that's the only, because I've been the same as you. Like I was never worried about it. Like when Ryan found out his wife was pregnant, like he remembers he like passed out. Like it was like overwhelming and like I can't. And that's great that people respond that way. I was like you, I never did. I was just like, well,
my only response to it was this. It was like, I was like, I'm going to have less time in the day. So I probably should like double my focus. Like, and I was like, okay. And then once I doubled my focus and I started running the math, because you and I are very similar in a lot of ways. We're very different in a lot of ways, but one of the ways we're very, very similar is that when I found out or whatever, I went to my wife and I was like, okay, so like, you know this better than I do. So like, how much is this going to cost? Right? Like, how much more money do I need to make? Right? And like me being me, who will, to me, I'm like, if a problem can be solved by money, then we're just going to solve the problem. It's not that difficult. Right. Yep. But I'm like, okay, we have every single freaking thing you could buy. Like we have so much stuff for this kid.
And here's the thing that will only affect you. You get those things so your life is better. It doesn't change the baby's life.
Okay. So talk to me about me though, for a second, not about the kid. There have been a few people that are like, parenting is awesome, yada, yada, yada. And just that. Almost everyone is like, you have no idea what you're about to walk into, dude. Like parenting is a different thing. And they'll be like, and it's awesome. It's totally worth it. But it sucks. It's so hard. It is so difficult. It is so this. Like you have no idea what your life is about to get rocked. Your life is about to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, your business, you thought business was hard. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. But like, I don't really have business. I optimize my life so I can go like, dude, I mean, you know me, like I go smoke weed and read the Bible in the mountains every weekend. You know what I mean? Like that's like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I won't be able to do that when I have a kid. I get that. But like, what's gonna change for me? Like, what do I need to prepare? Like, if you could give me your best advice, not of how to raise a child, but like just of like what to mentally prepare for.
Yeah.
On the first kid.
All right. I got it.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
This is my response to that. So first off, everybody likes shared suffering, right? So they're going to talk about the suffering part first. So there's just that, right?
Yeah, but I hate sharing suffering.
Human nature, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing really well, you always want to talk about how hard it was. That's just we're bound by shared suffering.
Yeah.
But the thing that it took me a while to realize that this is for whatever way I'm wired, and I would tell other people to do. And I use the example of like, because when I got engaged, my brothers who were older than me, who were not engaged, were like making fun of me. And they're like, well, now you have to give up all of this stuff. And the example was like, weekend in Vegas, right? That's gone now that you're tied down. And I thought about that for a long time. And I thought, when I was single, that was fun. And Mormons in Vegas are not the same as everybody else. It was so fun, right? But what I'm stepping into, I want so much more than that I'm not even sacrificing the weekend in Vegas. I don't want it anymore. And then, when I use the joke, but it's very true that with every kid, I had to give up a hobby. Like I used to watch every snap of every football game, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, every single time.
Really?
I haven't watched a football game in like 3 years.
I didn't even know you knew what football was.
You don't even know me when it was that. But like, yeah, I knew all of it. I grew up playing sports. Like that's what got, anyway. But I don't miss those things because I've replaced them, and I've been very clear with myself. No, this is what I want. And I only look back at that with fond memories. That was an enjoyable time of my life, but I don't wish I was still there and wanting it and doing that. Right. And so I think what a lot of people do is when they take on something new, they don't actually evolve. Right. And there's the scripture that's like, when I became a man, I put away childish things. I think that's what that scripture is meant to tell us to do. Isn't that I regret anything, but I can look at that and be like, that was really fun to be married and not have kids, but I don't still want it. I don't still wish for it. Right. And then that's when people are like, bro, you don't even know. Well, it's like, only if you're holding on to that still, that's the answer. And then we all optimize our lives so quickly, and we can, like, once we're in on something, you're going to keep up with the rate of change because you're not going to be surprised because you're already wanting and desiring and planning for it that you're just stepping into, and it's just new. So I don't have the whole thing of like, bro, get ready. It's not even going to be any, like, is it hard? Yeah. Is it all of that stuff? But
I'm like, yo, it's hard to imagine there's going to be something harder than figuring out how to like build a business.
And I'll give you this, like I was still an employee making $60,000 a year when I had a mortgage and 3 kids, and then decided to step off and start a business.
Through that.
Right. So I believe I had a much more difficult path to take than some, or more, or at least mentally straining to it. But I don't look back on it as like, oh my gosh, what the heck was I thinking? That was the craziest thing. It was just those incremental pieces. And I never looked back and stayed attached to. So you've got to let go of single Josh. You have to let go of married, no kids, total freedom Josh, and say, no, I chose, this is what I want. This is the path. This will do that. And just focus forward on that. And then just enjoy the memories of what you had before, but don't try to have both. And you've already done it. You've already begun re-engineering what your life is going to be. You're increasing
so much so.
You're making those choices. So when you step into it, you're going to be like, what was everybody talking about?
That's okay. I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, I don't know, man. I feel like basically what I'm hearing you say is, was kids hard? Yeah, but like all of life is hard. Yeah, what do you do? It was like, in looking back, it wasn't actually that difficult in a way that everybody else said it was difficult. Yes, it was difficult and challenging because life is difficult and challenging, but it wasn't actually that difficult, right?
No. And again, it's back to like, I knew I chose it. And so anything 100%. I choose, the suffering is much less because I chose it. I know what the outcome is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's helpful.
100%.
All right. Well, that makes me feel better. I appreciate it. And I don't know.
But it's going to be the simply greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Optimize not to check boxes. Cause like when you said like, I just hire a nanny and it'll all go away. Like,
no. I meant for like,
I know what you mean.
Sleep. Yeah.
Yep. But like, yes, find the things to optimize you being a father, you being a husband, and you being a business owner, not just optimize your life to be a business owner.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I do think that is one area that I've gotten right. In the sense of like, I mean, you know me too. Like, I'm like, business sucks, man. I hate being a business owner. I love making money, right? Like, I love having a show. I love having influence, but like, and so I think I've done that. I think I conceptually understand that it will grow and change, I'm sure, but I'm super pumped about it. The thing that I'm most excited, and then we'll wrap up here, but the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm like, you know how in business, like, you launch a campaign or you do something and it's like, then you got to wait like a day or a week or a month. And then you like get feedback back. Right. And then you like make adjustments and you're like, okay, that was working. That's not. I'm like, I feel like a kid is a rapid fire, instantaneous feedback mechanism, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right. Of like, exactly, like, there's no like, oh, let's just put this away for a day and check on it tomorrow. Right. Like, it's just like, nope, it is there in your life all the time, constantly giving you feedback on and adjusting you in real time. And me, a personal development junkie who wants to just like go as fast as I possibly can. I'm like, I feel like that's going to be super exciting. So,
and anyway, that the only time I've ever been like in despair about parenting is it's relentless, right? You're right. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You cannot get away from it. And that's the only time is like, can I just have a break and not be that? That's the only thing that I've ever really had to deal with, is to be like, because it is constant.
Yeah, but
Eyes
God
on
gave
you.
us a husband and a wife. So, we have help. It's amazing. It's like God's smart or something.
It's like he had a plan.
Like he has planned. All right, man. I appreciate your time on this. A couple rapid fire questions here just to wrap up. Number one, because I have to know, who was your sports team? If you used to watch all these sports, who was your favorite football team?
So I grew up, this was a rough time, but I grew up in Washington State in the 90s. So it was Seahawks, man. We were Seahawks fans before it was cool to be Seahawks fans.
All right. Seahawks fans. Okay. I don't know. We'll have to have you back on and actually do money episodes and stuff. Instead of rapid fire, I do have one more question, or rapid fire question, but like, instead of a rapid fire question, I will say a genuine thank you to you from me, for as one of the things that has made the setup of having a child, so much more insanely easy to me in my head is I'm like, I feel like my finances are in order. And like, not like, just like, it's not like I have a big savings account type of in order. Like, I'm like, I feel like I actually know what I'm doing with my finances, and I have like it set up and in place. I told you this when I moved into the house. Like, It was like everything went wrong. It was like, it was more expensive and things changed. It took longer, whatever. And I just called you and I was just like, thank you. So thank you. I really, really do appreciate all your knowledge and your influence over me in the area of money, because I didn't listen to you for a long time, but I'm very, very glad that I did. So
you're welcome.
Thank you. Last question for you is, all right, imagine you are, every stage that you have been on, every podcast that you do now, all that you've done in all through the end of your life. I don't want you to think about every person that you've ever talked to in life. I want you to think about specifically your ideal customer, your ideal person that you feel called to serve. And for you, it would be like kind of the entrepreneurial crowd type of this. Like every person that's ever heard you speak, they will forget everything you've ever told them, because that's what we do, right? But you could leave them with one final message or one final idea that they will believe 100%. You don't have to have any justification, right? You don't have to have any proof of it. Like, you just get to be like, factually know this, or factually this message or idea. They will believe and operate. What's that message or idea?
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
So the one thing they would believe implicitly.
Yeah, factually, just done. End of story. No question.
That, there'd be lots of them. In my domain of wealth, it would be, until you've built value that is outside of your capacity, you're not wealthy. If it requires you and your inputs, you're still in the income game. So it is that game has to be figured out.
That's good. All right.
Now I'm going to think about that and come back on and answer it more.
All right. We'll have to. That's you can come back
on.
That's
the initial thing. Is there's a difference between making money and what wealth is, in understanding. Because I mean, lots of business owners are like, "Oh, I help people be financially free," and they're like, "Oh, I already am."
You don't have to justify it.
Okay.
I know. Okay, guys, Brad is our money guy on the show. He is not even just the money guy, the wealth, the finance, the money, all of it, anything to do with that. He is the person I trust to most. We will have him on many, many, many times. I wanted to start with this episode, not talking about money, not talking about all this stuff. So you got to know him a little bit better. And it was super, super fun. Brad, thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.